Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quad Education's webinar on the UC Schools, how to position yourself as the ideal applicant with insider secrets from college admissions counselors. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited that you have all joined us for this webinar today. Okay, so I just want to go over the agenda then, just to give you all an idea of what we're going to be covering today. So we'll start with an introduction. So I'm going to introduce myself in a moment, and I'll introduce Quad Education and our panelists that are with us today. We're going to go over an overview on the UC schools. I'll discuss the level of competition, how to approach the application, and then we'll move on to what the UC schools look for in applicants, how you can stand out in your application, tips to increase your chances of acceptance. And then finally, we'll end with some question and answers. So we're going to try to leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end here to cover all of your questions. And if you actually just look on your Zoom, there's a little question and answer box there. So please feel free to start typing in your questions. You can start, as soon as we get going here, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So I'll actually just start by introducing myself. So my name is Nadine Evans, and I'm part of the student success team here at Quad Education. Now, to introduce Quad, so we are a college admissions consulting company, and our team is comprised of former admissions officers from top universities. All of our counselors have unique insights into what top universities are looking for, and we've been supporting students through the college admissions process for over 14 years. Here at Quad, we work with students from grade 6 all the way through grade 12 with all aspects of the preparation and application process. So now that you know a little bit more about what Quad Education is, let me introduce you to our panelists. I'll start with Sarah Han. Sarah has a bachelor's degree from UCLA, where she served as an admissions reader. Through her time reading application documents, she learned that every student is unique and has a story to tell. This experience also gave her insight into what admissions committees look for in prospective applicants. Sarah specializes in helping students find their narratives and voice in their personal statements. Students that Sarah has recently coached have gotten into several top schools, including UCLA, USC, and UC Berkeley. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great. And let me introduce you to our other panelists. We have Anthony Grant with us. Anthony has over 12 years of experience in higher education and has served as an admissions reader for UC Berkeley. He was also an admissions counselor at Syracuse University, assistant director of admissions at the University of Richmond, and assistant director of admissions at Earlham College. He has interviewed prospective students, overseen diversity recruitment, and rendered both scholarship and admissions decisions. These experiences have allowed Anthony to gain a strong understanding of what admissions officers are looking for, and in turn, what candidates can do to make themselves stand out. So thank you so much, Anthony, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Nadine. I'm very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're just going to kick things off then and just give you guys an overview of the UC schools. So I will pass this along to Sarah.
Thank you so much. So what are the UCs known for? I'm sure you're familiar with some of the UCs, such as UCLA, Berkeley. But what's interesting is about close to 90% of the UC undergrad are California residents. The UCs, all of them rank within the top 100 school. 2 of them are top 25, 6 are top 50. And they're known to be prestigious for that reason. The UCs are also known for research opportunities, even at an undergraduate level. Some programs even have undergraduates working with graduate students in top research.
Okay, so let's move on to the UC schools and just talk a little bit about the level of competition. Anthony, would you be able to speak to this?
Yes, so there are there are 3 slides at which we'll take a look at UC Berkeley from a very quantitative standpoint. So what are the numbers telling us about what their admissions process is like? So as you can see on this chart, this is a graph that really highlights what the past 3 admission cycles have been like. fall 2019, fall 2020, and fall 2021. And it's important to note that that the fall 2020 application cycle, when we were in the middle / towards the end of the cycle, is when the pandemic started. So that's something to keep in mind. I do also want to note that before we continue with this slide or the next two slides with the numbers, is that every single number that we will share to you is very public information. So we're not sharing to you private or sensitive data. The University of California has on its website admissions data for every UC campus going back for several years. So all of this we were able to pull from an online database that is verified and published by the University of California each year. One other thing that I want to also highlight, and you can see how in the chart each UC campus is color coded on there. But one thing that you'll notice stemming from fall 2019 through fall 2021, you'll notice that while the enrolled numbers are pretty much the same, the main outlier is UC Merced, which only enrolls a fall class typically of about 2,000 or so students, whereas the other UC campuses enroll first year class anywhere between 4,000 to 7,000. So while the enrolled numbers in the first year classes have remained the same, you'll notice that from fall 2019 through fall 2021, the number of students who have applied has gone up, which has resulted in some UC campuses having to become more selective in terms of the percentage of students they are going to admit for the fall. May we go to the next slide? So this slide now just focuses on the past year. So fall 2021. And again, I'd like to point to the fact that on this slide, you'll see that that the enrolled number, again, except for UC Merced, which has a lower enrollment, pretty much is flat across UC campuses with different rates in terms of the numbers of students who've applied and the number of students who've been admitted. One thing that I really want to highlight, especially as we look at this chart, is that selectivity and how selective a UC campus, or really any college for that matter, might be, does not inherently mean that one campus is better than the other. So the University of California really takes pride in the academic programs and all of the other types of offerings they do have available for students to pursue higher education. So that said, how selective a one campus might be compared to another more so has to do with the number of students who have applied, as well as what their enrollment goals might be for that fall. So again, looking at the gray line, for the most part, enrollment in the first year classes is pretty flat across all UC campuses. But if you have more students applying, and then also in thinking about how many of the students who you admit will actually say yes to the offer of admission as well. So those are the two things that really determine how selective a school is going to be. How many students apply to a school, as well as how many students does that campus think will say yes to the offer of admission in order for them to get to the enrollment of their first year class, which again, as you can see, is very comparable from one UC campus to the next. And then maybe go to the next slide. All of the numbers you see on here are comparing application numbers and admit rates and yield rates, which yield is the percentage of students who get an offer of admission, who choose to say, yes, I'm going to attend that particular school. So we see what those numbers are like between in-state students. And as Sarah mentioned, University of California enrolls almost 90% of its population from its home state. Out of state is referring to students within the US who are outside of the state of California, and then international students are also known as out of state, but they are coded as a separate category. I do also want to make note that there is a difference in the color of the numbers. So all of the numbers that you see in black in terms of the number of applications received, how many students were admitted, and how many were enrolled, we got that directly from the University of California website. All of the percentages you see in red are what we at Quad calculated based on the actual numbers from the University of California. So I want to be clear in that you won't be able to go to the University of California website and see the percentages in red. That is what we did in order to paint the picture of the actual numbers you see in black. All of that said, there are many differences between in-state versus out-of-state versus international students. Again, as different UC campuses try to see how many apps they've gotten, how many students do they think are going to enroll based on the offer of admission. One data point that I really want to drive into is if you look at UC Davis, it is the second school on the left, second school from the top on the left-hand side. And if you notice that they admitted a higher percentage of their out-of-state students compared to in-state students as far as what the percentage was. But that's because if you look at the enrolled rate or the yield rate, out-of-state students enrolled who were admitted to UC Davis enrolled at a much lower rate. So that is an example of how colleges try to assess for enrollment for the fall. And also this is an anomaly, as most UC campuses are going to admit a higher percentage within the in-state pool compared to the percentage of students from the out-of-state pool. But you can see that anomaly with UC Davis more so because of yield. So I believe we'll go on to the next slide with Nadine and Sarah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anthony. Yeah, some very interesting stats there. So let's move right along to how to approach applying to the UC schools. Now, I just want to highlight this quote here. So while all UC campuses use the same factors to evaluate applications, they often apply these factors differently. So this is directly from the UC website. So Sarah, can you just explain to us a little bit about what this means in this context?
Yes, of course. All UCs use the holistic review approach. Because the pool of students who apply to UCs is different every year, the level of academic performance necessary for admission to a particular campus or major is different too. Meaning the acceptance rates depend on the number of applicants. Just like Anthony mentioned previously, their academic qualifications and the spaces that they have available depend on those rates. For example, a 4.3 GPA applying to UCLA is going to be different from the same 4.3 GPA applying to UC Davis, meaning that they will contextualize the factors according to each school. Each UC campus evaluates each application without knowing the status of the same application at another campus. So in making those admissions decisions, campuses do not consider where you've applied to or your admission status to the other campuses. So all in all, the campuses consider your application simultaneously, yet at the same time, independently, all of the other campuses you apply to.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Okay, let's move right along to the UC application then. What can people expect here?
Yes, so for this year, the UC application is broken down into 7 sections. You have personal information regarding you and your family, paperwork, as I like to call it. You also get to select the campuses and majors simply by clicking checkboxes. So you'll determine where you'll want to apply and which major you'll want to study. 3 is they'll go over academic history. So this is your high school transcript, coursework, your grades. Following that, test scores, SAT subject tests, AP exams, IB exams, TOEFL if applicable, and international exams. Note that you don't see the SAT or ACT score in the test scores. You'll also move on to activities and awards. So this includes extracurricular activities, any awards, whether it be athletically or academically. And you'll also move on to scholarships and programs. So any of the scholarships you like to apply to, or if it is applicable to you. Last but not least, we call it the essay, but the personal insight questions will be your quote unquote essay. So they're doing the same thing this year as they did last year. Is the only difference is they will give you 8 questions. Out of the 8, you are asked to select 4. Each of the responses will be anywhere from 250 to 330 words, which realistically speaking is not a lot. It's a short answer, maybe even a paragraph. The good news is they consider equal consideration for each question. And the purpose is to really find the best information about you, right? It's to get to know you better. I always like to put it as, think of it as if you were in an interview with the admissions officer, right? What would you say? It's an opportunity for you to be open, to be reflective, to really find your voice and express it. There is no right or wrong answer. So I always encourage students to actually do the exercise, answer all 8, right? From the 8 answers, really select the 4 that speaks to you and really exemplify who you are. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Anthony.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that's very interesting and very good to know. I know the personal insight questions are always something that are very interesting to our students, and being presented with 8, it's kind of good to know that there's only 4 that you have to select there. So yeah, let's move on here to deciding which schools to apply to. And Anthony, if you can please speak to us about this, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Sarah and Nadine. So the first point is really important, and that really informs the other 4 points on the slide. Research the school's mission and values to see if they align with your beliefs, values, and the things that you have a interest in, because no 2 UC campuses are the same. UC Merced is not Irvine. UC Irvine is not UCLA. So please make sure that you're looking at the website of every single UC campus that you are thinking of applying to. So really do think of them, even though they are connected by one system that's run by the state of California. Each campus has their own individual ways of being that will shape who you are as a college student. So please make sure that you look at the website of every single every single school you're thinking of applying to. Also, review the class profile data and the admit rates. So as I went over what the number of applications have been over the past few years, and the number of students who've been admitted, number of students who've chosen to enroll. Again, you can find all of that on the University of California's website, and you can also click by different criteria. So you can see the entire UC system and put in certain years. You can also see the individual campuses you're thinking about as well. Some of you may be more focused on going to college in California as a whole. So you might be looking at a broader range of UC schools, whereas others of you may only want to go to college within Southern California. So that means that UC Berkeley is not going to be on your list, and Southern California is where you're looking to be. Really make sure that you're reviewing the school culture, campus life, clubs, and academic programs offered. Because no two UC campuses are the same, there are some academic majors that are going to be shared by many of them, but there are some that are only going to be unique to a few of them. So as an example, UC Davis has a major called, the major is called Agricultural and Environmental Education, that, for example, UC Riverside does not have. But then in turn, UC Riverside is the only UC campus to offer a public policy major at the undergraduate level. So really make sure, especially as you're thinking about not only what type of college or university at which you'd like to enroll, thinking about the academic majors or the types of extracurricular clubs you may want to join. Each UC campus has their own set of academic majors and different clubs and things of that sort. So please make sure that you keep that in mind. Maybe go to the next slide. So in terms of what the UC schools look for, and so there are many different factors that UCs look for. The reason why UCLA and UC Berkeley is mentioned on this particular slide is because that's where Sarah and I have done our reading within the UC system. That said, these are also some factors that are also looked at by other UC campuses as well. Again, I can't say this enough, each UC school, while it is guided and governed by the state of California, within those guidelines by the state of California, they do take their own approach in reviewing applications. So while these factors on the slide are some things that, for example, UC Berkeley and UCLA have in common, make sure that you both review the University of California's website, as well as the individual school at which you're hoping to apply. In terms of the academic record of achievement, so students will need a minimum of 15 college prep courses, which in California they're known as the A through G courses with a letter grade of a C or better. For classes that took place during a particular aspect of the pandemic, so from winter 2020 all the way through summer 2021, UC will also accept a grade of CR credit or P for pass, because we do understand that a lot of high schools during that time did not give out letter or number of grades, but gave out credit and pass. Please also note that there are different requirements for in-state versus out-of-state students. So as an example, with keeping in mind that you need at least 15 college prep courses with A through G, students who come from who are in-state students have to have at least a 3.0 GPA, compared to out-of-state students who have to have at least a 3.4. So please make sure that not only are you reviewing what the general requirements are for UCs, but you're also keeping in mind what those particular requirements are for in-state versus out-of-state students as well. We do also, or the UC campuses do also look at the personal qualities as well. We are definitely, and the UC campuses definitely are intentional about the types of classes that they're going to shape. And they really do view themselves as building communities. So really make sure, or let me not go steal Sarah's thunder, but they do pay attention to different personal qualities as well, achievement and dedication to extracurricular activities as well, and the depth of your involvement within a community. So there are some students who may be in 10 different extracurricular activities. They may have been in all 10 of them for about a year, but then you may have other students who may have only been in 3 or 4, but there's deep involvement over the course of a 4-year high school career where there's different leadership attributes being demonstrated, and ways that students have demonstrated that they've grown within those different activities as well. Academic enrichment programs are certainly something that the UC campuses look at as well. There are a number of students throughout California and across the United States who are also in academic enrichment programs. Again, and thinking about building a community, UC campuses are also looking at the contributions that you'll make to the intellectual and cultural vitality of the campus, meaning how do you contribute to the academic environment in your class and with your peers and with your professors, but then also how do you contribute to the campus community outside of class as well. And all of that is looked at through a holistic review. So meaning that while the academic component is certainly a very important component because you are going to college to pursue academics, again, the UC campuses are also looking at what types of communities are they building through the students who choose to enroll there. The other thing I do want to point out, I did answer this in the Q&A, but also I want to say it aloud as well. So UC campuses do not require scores anymore as far as standardized tests, the SAT or the ACT. So that is not a factor in how you are looked at within the admissions process. That said, for some students who do choose to send them, they may be used after you are admitted in order to determine course placement.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anthony. So now that we know what the UC schools look for, Sarah, can you tell us how students can stand out in the application?
Yes, so one of the great ways to stand out is to show that you are a good fit for the school. Meaning before you can show, though, there is a step prior, meaning you will have to do your due diligence. You will have to research, right? For example, if you want to declare marine biology as your major, which UC campuses offer that major? Are there similar majors to it? Aquatic biology, biological sciences, right? You also want to research, are there research opportunities for undergraduates for the major that you want to pursue, right? All of that research will also help show that you are a good fit, that you know which professors are known to be famous in that major, or what publications a certain professor or group of graduate students have published, right? The more you know and understand, the more that you can demonstrate that best fit. Also, you want to make sure you differentiate yourself by finding out what makes you unique, right? So what is your positioning, right? You want to tell them about yourself, not just academic achievement, right? But they want to know what were your personal challenges or triumphs. What impact did you make, right? What was your growth, right? So you want to present that information and ideas in a focused and thoughtful manner, right? It's not just simply writing a list of accomplishments in your short answers and the personal insight questions, but really take time to demonstrate, right, that skill or that talent and that growth, right? Imagine if you're meeting someone for the first time, right? You don't just list off everything you're great at, right? What a boring time you would have, right? You want to know their story, right? How did they get started? What excites them about that subject matter, right? In that same way, you want to make sure you spend time in the personal insight questions and really, and I want to say this takes time, right? It's not something you can crank out in 20 minutes. Not every day does someone ask you, what is your talent and skill, right? How have you demonstrated that growth, right? It's not a question you are asked every day, so it will take time to brainstorm, really to be honest and vulnerable and show that through your writing. You also want to highlight any special talents, awards, and or achievements. When I say talents, it necessarily doesn't have to be tied to an award or an achievement, meaning it doesn't have to follow a merit, right? I've had students who wrote that their talent is bird watching, right? It's not everyone's cup of tea, right? But their talent was to identify where certain birds migrate, right? And to find and really recruit a group of students who are excited, right? In that subject matter, right? So you really want to use specific concrete examples to the talent that you want to demonstrate and show, right? And last but not least, this is so important. Out of the thousands of applicants, right? What is your narrative, right? What is your story? You want to use your voice, right? Your answers should be reflective of who you are and who you want to be, right? It doesn't always necessarily mean that you know the answers to everything or you don't have your life mapped out for the next 4 years, but you definitely know the direction, right? You want to go into, right? So just like Anthony was saying, you want to share your intellect, but also your desire for learning, right? Your curiosity, right? All of these things holistically will help you stand out in the application process.
Great. So
And
let's
here,
along to the tips to increase your chances of acceptance.
so I'm always a proponent. You want to plan ahead and you always want to start your application early. You never want to be in a position if the site crashes, right? It happens all the time, believe it or not. I know this was a while back, even when I was applying, I had heard stories that the site had crashed like almost every day to that deadline, right? So you always want to start early. You want to be thoughtful, right? You really want to take time. And you also want to submit early if possible.
So, so the next point on the slide is to follow application directions. This is very important. So as an example, UC Berkeley across the board does not require letters of recommendation. That said, they may choose each year a small number of students to request a rec letter if they feel that there's additional information that they would like to get for that student. So in that particular case, they would reach out to the student and say, we would like to learn more about you through the admissions process. Would you please let us know the name and the email address of someone, a teacher, high school counselor, someone of that sort, who can write a letter to us on your behalf. So in following application directions, do not ask for a rec letter to be submitted on your behalf unless you're asked first. So please don't have your teacher or your counselor or someone in your local or someone in your local community send to UC Berkeley or send to UCLA or send to any other UC campus a rec letter if the campus has not directly asked you for a letter. So please make sure that you keep that in mind, and especially because as you saw many slides ago, the numbers of apps that different UC campuses receive. So, you know, if every single, I think both this past fall, both UC Berkeley, I think UC Berkeley was at about 112,000 and UCLA, I believe, was around 145, 49,000. Imagine if every single student just had one letter submitted. So we're talking about over 200,000 letters that haven't been asked for. Which provides more work for the admissions officers to comb through. So please follow the application directions and do not submit items that have not been asked of you. The third one is to don't take shortcuts throughout your high school career, especially in your senior year. So the example I think about with this one is, you know, in your senior year, if you are interested in studying biology in college and your high school offers honors bio and they also offer AP bio, and you take honors bio because you think that it's going to be an easier time for you, but the AP bio would be a little bit more challenging, and it's also going to prepare you more for college as well, whether or not you do go to a UC campus. So really think critically about how you're navigating your senior year. You do not want to communicate the message that you're trying to take it. You're trying to have a smooth ride in your senior year, or you're trying to challenge yourself less in your senior year, or not be as prepared for college. Now, I'm not saying take every AP under the sun, but really think critically through, along in consultation with your high school counselor, how are you navigating your academic schedule as senior year that really allows you to take the types of classes you like, but also really prepare you for what your college career is going to be. And then for the last one, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Yes, I agree 100% with Anthony. Do not cruise through senior year. Stay on track and do pursue even the difficult courses. Last but not least, you want to make sure your essays are powerful and they are memorable, meaning it should leave a lasting impression on the reader, right? If you think about it, nowhere in the UC application, besides the personal insight question, out of the 7 sections, 6 out of the 7 is you filling in information about yourself, right? And keep that perspective in mind, meaning there is going to be weight on those essays, right? So you really want to make sure out of the 8 questions, really identify the 4 that apply best to you, and really take the time to build. I like to call them mini essays, right? You know, UC application does not have interview. They do not consider ACT or SAT test scores. So in a broader sense, then it really comes down to these essays, right? So you really want to be spending a lot of time curating the best essays.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so let's move right into our question and answers then. So let me just go through here and see which ones we can answer. Okay, so this is a good one that that we've seen as well. Thank you to everyone for submitting questions, and as well, when you were signing up for the webinar, I noticed some people added some questions there as well. So one of them is, you know, how do you basically decide which of the essays you should write about? You know, out of the 8 choices, it can be difficult to narrow it down to the 4 when you might feel like, you know, you kind of have something to write about for all 8 of them. So, you know, how can students kind of decide which 4 they should actually submit?
I can take this one. It's a good brainstorming exercise to answer all 8. And you'll find out most of the students that I've worked with is there will be kind of like a light bulb moment or aha moment when you recognize, wow, out of these 8, these 4 sound the best. And what I mean by that is they really show who you are, right? You want to talk more about it, right? It will come naturally, right? So that's why they gave you 8 to choose from, because not every question is going to be applicable to every student. So it's hard to say, instead of working backwards and reading the questions and saying, okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are the ones I'm going to answer. Answer all of them, right? And it doesn't have to, during the brainstorming process, it doesn't have to be complete sentences, right? You could write phrases, you could bullet point, but you'll see during that brainstorming process which 4 you should really zoom in and really reflect on and do a little bit more writing. Sometimes it's not necessarily 4, it's some folks find it hard and they narrow it down to 5. Then I say, hey, take that 5 and run with it. Write your responses. Don't even think about the word count. Write the answer completely. Make sure you answer the question completely. And from there, it'll help narrow down which are the best 4. And keep in mind, I always say, think about the prompt, right? The prompt clearly states over and over again, even on the website, it's best information about you, right? So that's what they're looking for, is which of the 4 questions provide the best information about you, right? So keep that in mind as you're narrowing it down.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. That's really helpful. Now, another question we have is it harder for out-of-state students to get accepted into a UC school?
So there's a simple answer and then there's a more lengthy answer. So the simple answer is yes. And that's because, and this is what I'm about to say is not unique to the state of California. Every single state in the US that has state colleges and universities have a primary goal of enrolling students from their own state. And so across the United States, and it's going to vary, there are some states that have a minimum percentage of students that the state legislature has said, you as a public school for our state, you have to enroll X percentage of students from our state. So not every single US state has that requirement, but every single state throughout the US does want to, as much as possible, keep as many students who have been born and raised in their state, within their state, to not only receive an education in their state, but then also the thought is that you're going to be educated by our state and receive a college degree, but then also maybe at some point stay within the state and use what you've learned in college in order to contribute to the growth of the state. So the simple answer is yes, but that is the case across the United States as each state takes a look at its public colleges.
Great, that's wonderful. Thank you, Anthony. Now let me just see, there's another one here. Do you think the UC schools care more about the rigor of your classes or the grades that you have in them?
I can take this one. I want to say both, right? But remember, Nadine pointed out that quote earlier, right? So it's within context. For example, if your high school offers all the APs possible, right? They will take a look. Out of all those APs, which one did you pursue, right? Out of the ones that you pursued, how well did you do in the class, right? Did you take the AP or IB exam, right, in that subject matter, right? Another example is if that subject matter, for example, AP psychology was not offered in your high school, right? Did you go down the street to a community college? Did you take an online course? Because you were so curious about that subject matter, right? You wanted to pursue it. What did you do, right? Meaning it is fair in that sense that the UCs give that holistic review. Is not every student has an opportunity to pursue certain classes, but within what your school offered is what did you take advantage of? What did you pursue, right? So in that sense, yes, the rigor does matter. The grade matters also. If you took the exam, it does matter.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Now we have another question here. So how do the UC schools see community college credits or classes versus AP credits and classes?
I can take this one. Similarly, it's weighed about the same, meaning they see AP really demonstrate college readiness. So if you took, for example, AP Calc, right? BC, right? Versus if you went down to the community college, took something similar, right? It's seen both ways that you took on a college level course and you are ready.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Okay, we have another question here. So how can you choose your recommendation letter writers?
So I can take this one. So so 2 admission cycles ago, I was working with my oldest niece on her college search, and when it came time for rec letters, she brought up a few names of teachers, and I believe, if I'm correct, I believe there was one teacher with whom she got a slightly higher grade, but who knew her less than another teacher with whom she got a slightly lower grade, but she really had a closer relationship with that teacher. And I advised her, I said, go with the teacher who knows you better, because again, in going back to the slide where we talked about the different qualities that the UCs pay attention to, and especially thinking about all of the intellectual attributes you'll bring to class, to a community of peers, but also all of the cultural and all of the personal things that you'll bring to a campus community outside of class. Having a teacher who can really speak to what do you contribute to class can really go a lot farther than a teacher with whom you got an A, but they really cannot tell the admissions committee, what are you going to contribute as a curious intellectual student. So my first priority in thinking about rec letters is carefully choosing teachers who really know you well, both personally and academically. And I say both because a teacher who knows you personally, but can't really speak to who you are as a student, does not service you in the same way that a teacher with whom you got an A, and you had that teacher all year, but they also cannot speak to who you are as a student. So make sure that you are thinking about the depth of the relationships that you have with your teacher. And again, someone who can speak to both your academic and your personal qualities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anthony. Now, this is an interesting question here. So someone has said, please comment on angular versus well-rounded applicants. So this kind of speaks a bit to, when we were talking about holistic review, but yeah, this is interesting. Anthony or Sarah, do you guys want to tackle that one?
I would like to see it as well-rounded applicants. When you see their application, you'll get a clear picture of who they are. For example, if a student wants to pursue a business, right? Not only did that student take every AP econ, right? Micro, macro class possible, right? All their extracurricular reflected, right? The clubs, right? Any competition, right, is really centered around business, right? Maybe in high school, they started their own business, right? And maybe in their personal insight question, they'll talk about how it wasn't successful, it failed, but along the way, they learned, right? X, Y, and Z, right? So when you view that application, it's a whole person, right? I see who they are very clearly, right? I think that speaks louder and leaves a lasting impression, right? It's like also when you interview someone, when the interview goes so well, you know all about that person, right? Their interest, what they've been through, right? It's almost like a natural conversation, right? So I want to say that's what the UCs, in my perspective, is looking for. It tells a whole story about a person who really pursued everything that they could possibly for that interest, right? And that clearly, you'll see that I anticipate that student to translate all of that and bring that into whichever UC campus they're applying to.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So I think we've got time probably for one more question here. So let's see this one here. So do the UC schools really compare applicants against other applicants, or are they only taking a certain amount of applicants from certain high schools?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah.
Go ahead, Anthony, you got it.
So one, you are competing against the other students in that pool for that UC campus for that year. In addition, again, because the University of California is a land grant public institution, there are going to be more in-state students who will be admitted to all of the UC campuses compared to out-of-state and compared to international students. That said, UC campuses don't have a quota for each individual high school. So the admissions officers don't say, oh, we can only take 10 from this school and 5 from this school. they're looking at the entire pool. And then also keep in mind that for in-state students, there's the top 9% state guarantee, and then there's also the local high school top 9% guarantee as well. So that can also impact, depending on the number of students from in-state who apply to a particular UC campus, that can also impact how students fare within the pool. But again, UC campuses do not have a quota in terms of we can only take X number of students from a certain school, but you are competing within the particular pool for the UC campuses to which you've applied for that particular year.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Anthony. Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have time for tonight. But thank you so much, everyone, for submitting your questions. Please feel free to contact us. We can try and to get to a couple more of those questions. But I just wanted to thank you, Anthony and Sarah, so much for participating in this webinar, and thank you so much to everyone who was here and joined us this evening. Hopefully everyone had a lot of fun, and I hope that you all found it helpful as well. So again, if you have any more questions we weren't able to get to, or any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you'd like to schedule a consultation, please head on over to our website. So it's quadeducationgroup.com, and you can schedule your consultation there. Now, we'd love to work with you through the application process and hopefully help you get accepted into your dream college. So don't forget to check out our website. We're going to be having a lot more webinars. So please, check out our website, sign up for more webinars. We'd love for you all to join us again. And thank you again to everyone. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.